Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily series from 8:30 to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments of the live feed. If you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. During the live session, we will be running a poll, so please do engage with it, and I'll reveal the results at the end. On the 3rd of March, you can attend Intuit QuickBooks virtual event, QuickBooks Connect. The virtual event brings entrepreneurs, small business owners, and accountants together to grow, learn, and connect with each other. So please watch out, 3rd of March. So, hi everyone. Unfortunately, I can't see any of you. I'm just in my room in Highgate. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give an introduction to who I am and my background and my business. I'll do that for hopefully no more than 8 minutes, and then get to the meat of the session, which is going to be answering your questions and having a dialogue. At the end, I will report back on the poll results and reflect on those before wrapping up. So by background, I'm originally from New Zealand. I grew up on a sheep farm in New Zealand, wild outdoors, then studied economics, mathematical economics, and thought to myself, what do I do? And decided to go into management consulting. And with that, I love being a management consultant. I was with a big American strategy firm, and I would go into clients, big corporate, big enterprises, so not SMEs, big organizations, and help them solve business problems. Typically pulling lots of data together, mostly in Excel, sometimes in Access and things like that, and visualizing all of this in stories and PowerPoint, and helping those clients to make strategic decisions and improve the operations and effectiveness of their organizations. Some of the work included organization design, supply chain optimization, and pricing. And you could say, well, that's all quite random and different industries. So I've done work in mining, consumer goods, retail, pharma, healthcare. So lots of different industries, and against lots of different domains. And so you might say, well, what's the red line? And the red line was really analytics. I was good with numbers and telling these stories and pulling it together. But I grew frustrated. I was frustrated that all the calculations and analytics I did was one-off. And I would have clients say to me, well, this is fantastic, but what am I going to do in 6 months' time? And so I thought I needed to find a solution, and I needed to use better technology to help get clients on a sustainable basis answer the questions that they needed, and visualize that and interact with that information so they could drive their businesses forward. So I founded Concentra Analytics back in 2008, so almost 13 years ago, and was always focused on content, so shaping and producing products. So back in, we started off selling services, analytical services, but I always wanted to create a product. So I raised a little bit of VC funding at the back end of 2009 so we could build a product. And that product's called OrgView. And OrgView helps clients understand their organization, understand not just how it's structured and how it's structured over time, but who does what work. So what is the work that people do? What are the competencies and skills needed to do that work? And so that you can manage your organization over time and plan into the future and then execute against that. We also have a platform on the back of all the analytics work that we're doing called TrueQ. What TrueQ does is it helps to pull data in from lots of different sources and build a data warehouse with no code. So that if you want to do operational HR analytics or sales analytics, we do a lot of work also in pharma and in healthcare. So with COVID, reporting on that, using the TrueQ platform. And actually the TrueQ platform is really geared towards SMEs as well as large enterprises. And so it's been a journey really of growth. But I would say growth is not linear, and it's not always easy. So we grew rapidly, and then at different points struggled. In 2012, struggled with alignment between myself and some of the other people who helped found the business. So we did an MBO just because we weren't aligned on the product strategy versus services. And I always wanted to drive product and create product. And we didn't always fully align on what products to build. I wanted to build OrgView and then TrueQ, and based on the experience I had with organization design. I then raised, we grew rapidly. We then managed to get into the US, and the US is really accounting for 70% of the growth in our sales. In the last 3 years since we got investment from a major PE firms, we raised 42 million pounds of investment. We've grown by over 250%, or more than tripled our revenue, and we're now in a situation where we've got very significant clients around the world, people like Bank of America, HSBC, Disney, Tesco, and many others, Prudential. So large organizations, some smaller. With OrgView, the smaller will be sort of 5,000 employees, but with TrueQ, a larger range of scale of organizations. And so where we are now is just really in a position of driving growth, standardization, building up my management team. So chief revenue officer, who's actually based in the States with professional marketing. So it's, the R&D team has been split. So we've got product management and a chief technology officer scaling up our capability there. Client success team dealing with our clients and making sure that they get value with enablement. So it's really been a process of professionalizing and growing and building scalability into the business model, which has meant that my role has constantly evolved. It started off, I was designing, building, selling, helping clients, like doing the whole gambit. And with time, it's really been a role of letting things go. I used to write every budget in Excel and do all the modeling in Excel. Now, there's a finance team with an FP&A, so financial planning and analysis team doing the modeling and what have you. And I just sort of set the direction and help with the puzzle, to make sure that we were growing in an optimal way, while preserving cash and growing cash, et cetera, et cetera. So, I could go on. It's been a great journey, but I've spoken for 7 minutes already, and I'd love to take your questions. So let me see if I've got any questions. So here's Jola from Facebook. Hi, Rupert. I started my business about 2 years ago. Things didn't scale as I planned in the first year, and then COVID has completely shrunk whatever progress I made. Sometimes I feel I'm not capable of running a business. How do you deal with the high and lows in your career? I feel for you. I have to say, when COVID struck a year ago, we were on a complete high, and we were on the back of a 70% growth year and looking to really accelerate. And COVID hit, and I've done 8 replans this year, and we had to cut back and stop all our growth plans. It doesn't sound like what I went through was nearly as tough as what you've gone through. I think dealing with the highs and lows, Jola, it's not easy. The lows are long and hard. And my former chairman, Richard Thompson, who's now in his 80s, he said to me, it's never as good as you think, and it's never as bad. So when you're in the low, just think that it's not as bad as you think. And actually, when you're on a high and everything's going better than you could ever have dreamed of, it's probably not as good as that either. And I think the biggest thing you need to be an entrepreneur and to get something going is resilience. You just have to stick with it. The metaphor I have in my mind, I do Ironman races, and I think doing physical exercise and training a lot helps me enormously just to switch off. And I've always struggled, particularly in these stressful times, with sleep. So trying to make sure you get enough sleep is really important. But during an Ironman, when you're in the marathon after having done 180 kilometers cycle, and then, the swim before that, and you're near the end of the marathon, you just got to keep on going and break it down. How do you eat an elephant in chunks? So give yourself small milestones and break it down. So you don't run a 40-kilometer race or a 42-kilometer marathon. You run a 2-kilometer, get to a food station, then you run another 2-kilometer. And I'd say have good people around you and vent, have people you can speak to, right? A problem shared is a problem halved. Yasin from Twitter, what tips do you have or create and maintain a strong product culture? I think being obsessed with product, it's understanding usability. It's getting lots and lots of feedback from clients and users and how they use it. Creating a product function so having a chief product officer who's really focused on building the roadmap and understanding the vision that you have for the product and the client feedback, the user feedback from the sales team, doing that in a structured way. That is a discipline in its own right. It's also, I think, celebration. So each time you do a release, and it's getting the devs on stage, the developers, the UX people, etc., presenting what they've built and celebrating that, and celebrating the small wins as well as the great ones. And from a revenue perspective, understanding the different metrics. So services have got metrics like day rate, utilization, etc. A product has other ones: customer acquisition cost, net revenue retention, annual recurring revenue. So from a financial perspective, it's leveraging the financial product metrics and prioritizing those over and above the service metrics, if that makes sense. Even if, like we had in the early days, our service revenue was far more important than our product revenue, focusing on the product financial KPIs also drives that culture. Carmen from Facebook Messenger asked, what have been the key trends around data that have appeared in the last year? And what is your view on the future of these? So I wouldn't know specifically just the last year. I would say it's the last decade. I mean, I think trends take longer. For me, it's the biggest is just universally everyone accepts just how crucial data is and the importance of it and being data driven. So, the name of my book is Data Driven Organization Design. So how do you do organization design in a data driven way? And data has, the term is the new oil. It's just always there. And to me, it's about the data being accessible. It's the gamification of it. It's the frequency in which it's being updated and how people who need the decisions can actually have it at their fingertips. So you can almost call it the consumerization of the data. Now, for me, there's different aspects to this as well. You've got, I call it lean forward and lean back analysis. So lean forward is with your mouse modeling and making changes and thinking about the future, whereas lean back is more insight driven, looking at a dashboard and thinking, what does that mean? And I think a lot more of it is lean forward, where you're actually interacting with the data, fixing the data real time, and making decisions real time around that. So that could be role design, the future of work, the competencies needed, what the workforce needs to look like in the future. Those are all decisions that you should be making, interacting with the data. The other thing is just the proliferation of machine learning capabilities. So the ability to use historical information and then generate a machine learning model to predict what might happen in the future, but also predict what some of the root causes are to that. So an example will be flight risk. What drives flight risk? And often flight risk, from some of our clients, have been driven by people working in different locations to their manager. Now, with COVID and people being more diverse from each other, what are the implications from that? Can we see a change in flight risk now with all the technology and everything else? And it's also cause and effect. So you take a set of actions. Do you see an impact of that in the data? So it's that constant feedback. I could go on for hours just on this one topic. Adrian from Twitter, 2 years ago, I was alone doing everything in my business. Now we're a team of 10. I find it hard to let go of tasks, even though I have many talented people around me. Do you have any advice? It's just, Adrian, you've got to have people you trust, and you have to find a way to let go. It's not easy, and it's a journey. Try to get your hands off the mouse and have your colleagues do the work and ask the questions, and have them kind of come back and present or work with you through that. See yourself, there's 10 of you, so you're still going to be pretty hands-on, but see yourself as a coach. And I think what's really important is servant leadership. So how can you serve your team? You've got 9 team members all looking to you. How can you make them successful? What are the skills and competencies that might be missing in them that you can adjust and help through? Because the more you can make your team successful, the more that they're going to be loyal to you, the more that you will grow as a team and get scalable, and the more that people will want to stay and the more that people will want to join. There are 3 things that drive motivation in the workforce, according to Daniel Pink in his book, Driven. Purpose, mastery, and autonomy. So purpose is having, where do we want to go? And is that meaningful? And why do I want to get out of bed for that reason? As the CEO, Adrian, you have to give them purpose. Mastery is, do they have the skills, the knowledge to be effective at doing the work that they need to do? And autonomy is, do they have the authority? Do they have the space to do what they need to do? Now, if you're crowding them and not giving them the space, they won't be motivated and you will lose your best people. So you have to ask yourself as well, what's the worst thing that can happen? If they make a mistake, what's the worst thing that can happen? Because if they do make a mistake, that's a great learning opportunity. I spend a lot of time coaching rugby. I've been coaching rugby for the last 10 years, coaching children. I've coached from the age of 5-year-olds up to 15. And I love just getting the kids to play. Just play and make mistakes. And I talk about positive mistakes. And if you make a mistake trying to do the right thing and maybe taking a little bit of a risk, you want to celebrate that, because that's how you get better. So maybe that mindset, will help you. Garrick from Facebook, good morning. Good morning to you too. With work from home being adopted by many companies as a culture for the future, even after COVID, what advice would you give to businesses who need to relook at their org design? So I think this was 2 things. I think working from home and a hybrid working model was happening anyway. In my organization, it was quite a few years ago now. My chief, engineer, who was working in London, the London office, said he wanted to move to Wales because his wife was from Wales. I freaked out completely, but I didn't want to lose him. And I thought, okay, he came with a proposal that he could work in Wales and that he would come to London for 2 days a week, 2 days every 2 weeks. So 2 days out of 10. So I said, let's just try it. I mean, what did I have to lose? Either him, which would have been a huge issue, or 8 days in the office. So anyway, we tried it. And you know what? His productivity went up. It was fantastic. And actually, our chief product manager for the design, he also started working from home. And he worked from home 4 days a week, 1 day in the office. And it worked extremely well. Now, a lot of people work from home. In the US, our sales force is completely distributed. That didn't change the org design. The org design was the same. The reporting lines, the work that people were doing, etc., was the same. What changed was the working patterns. So certain meetings had to be arranged in a structured way around those patterns. So coming in for the 2 days he came in, then that's when we did our planning and our deep dives and our design sessions and things like that. That's where he spent time face to face with the engineers and gave them coaching and support, etc. So I think when you think about your org design, you have to think about the work. What's the work that needs to happen, and what work needs to happen together, was more effective together, and what can be done remotely. And the work that can be done, that has to be done when you're physically together, was better done together. Schedule around that, but it doesn't mean you have to change the structure. I would be cautious about changing structure because on the back of COVID. Pascal from Instagram. Hi, Rupert. Data-driven business approach sounds great for larger businesses. I want to know if there are any significant benefit that small businesses can get out of it. If yes, what should we focus on? So, Pascal, I think all businesses should be focused on data. Where should you start? I would say start with the commercial side of the business. So what's your pipeline? Who are your customers or users or whatever business you're in? What is the relationship between revenue? It's really hard to answer the question for you, Pascal, without really understanding the context of your business. But I would say start at the revenue end and understanding how you can be more effective at generating revenue. Understanding pipeline. So what goes into the top of the pipeline? So how do you generate leads, and what are the conversion rates through that to sales? If you're, say, in retail, what's footfall looking like at what time? And then thinking about how do you optimize your workforce against that. And the other thing with data, you might be small now, but if you start structuring your data in the right way, that becomes an asset for the future. And think about how you can structure the data and collect it in an efficient way so that then becomes an asset for you. Hopefully that answers that one. Again, could go on forever. Another question here. I'm getting close to the end. I've got 8 more minutes. I've probably got another 4 or 5 minutes of questions. What competitive advantages so this is from Jonas on Instagram. What competitive advantages can a business earn through organization data and analytics? So most businesses are going to go bankrupt and they're going to disappear in 20 to 30 years. The world is being disrupted at an enormous rate. So the speed of change is accelerating. And your people and how you structure them so they can execute your strategy and perform is a fundamental building block of any successful business. It is a cliche to say people are our strongest asset, but it's also true that the vast majority of employees don't know what they're responsible for. Going back, I think it was to Jonas's question around, or someone who, accountability. How do you drive accountability down so everyone knows what they're doing and can execute? And think about it like this: sports teams. You can have an amazing team of talent, the best players on earth. So let's take soccer or football. The best football team, the best individual football players, and they can never win a World Cup or European Cup. I think the Dutch and English have often had the best players on earth, highest paid at least, and underachieved in major tournaments. Whereas you can have another team without that same talent, but they can win. Greece winning the European Cup final, or Leicester recently. And so, what I would say is, people can be champions, but it's organizations that win championships. And it's about getting everyone in the organization understanding what they need to do, how they need to do it. And if you have that, that is a competitive advantage. Because a great team wins the championship, not the great individual. And the truth is, most organizations struggle to achieve that. They just do, because they focus just on talent. They don't drive alignment. And these things lead to dysfunction and just too much internal navel gazing. So if you can get everyone performing as an organizational unit in the same direction, you will have that competitive analytics. Now, organizational data helps you codify that. So do you have an organizational data saying role clarity? So who's responsible for what? Understanding the work and who does what work. So what we do in OrgView is we actually quantify how much time people are spending doing their work, and are they doing the right work? And what we find is senior people spend 30% of the time doing transactional activities they should not be doing because they couldn't let go of them. And that's ineffective. So you can see that through the data. I could, again, go on. When is a good time to quit your job and start working on your idea? Did you start your business at the right time? So the right time to do it, if you don't do it now, you probably won't ever do it. So kind of, I was loving my career as a management consultant, absolutely loving it. So this was from Lawson on Twitter. And I felt that if I didn't leave, I had one child with another on the way. And actually, I started the business 2 weeks after my second son was born. I was petrified, but I'm like, if I don't do it now, I never will. And so I just took the plunge. So I suggest, the time to do it is now. What are you waiting for? But before you pull the trigger, plan it. Don't just leave. Work out your plan, develop your business plan. It's, develop your plan and then work your plan. I think planning is really, really important. So spend that, get it right, think about what can go right and wrong, and then execute on it. So it's time to turn to the poll results. We asked you, have you pivoted your business in the last year? And 100% of you said no. Wow. I wasn't sure how I was going to react to the poll. It's very rare to see 100% of people agreeing. I'm fascinated. 100% said no. What that makes me think is that almost no one answered the poll, or everyone's just stuck to the knitting. And, with the uncertainty around COVID and everything else, everyone just wanted to focus on executing your core business and just weathering the storm and coming out stronger, which is what I did and what our focus was. How do we come out stronger? Really interesting. So thank you all for tuning in. If you have any questions for myself, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Rupert Morrison, and please check out our websites, orgview.com, so it's www.orgvue for Victor Unicorn Echo, and trueq.com. True, it is true, and then QCUE.com. Coming up, the Ask the Expert on Monday is Rachel Martin, who is the founder and director of Accountant She, a female-led accountancy firm that specializes in working with female entrepreneurs, influencers, and business owners. Tune in to learn how to prepare your business for coming out of lockdown. Sounds really interesting. Look forward to hearing what Rachel has to say. Don't forget to join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB group on Facebook, and also register for QuickBooks Connect. You can find the link in the comments. I've really enjoyed answering your questions. Thanks so much for all the questions. Really interesting. Have a great weekend. And please tune in to Rachel on Monday. Thank you.